For this exercise, I'm going to look at some call center data. So here I have the call number, the duration of the call in seconds, the products they are selling, the sales amount, and the country they sold to. Most of you, when they will see this data and they want to create a graph for a dashboard, they'll do something like this. You'll have your sum of sales, and then you'll have your different products. So you can select a product and this will automatically update. But what I want to do today is something even better. I want to be able to create a graph with multiple KPIs. So instead of only having sum of sales, I want to have average duration of the call, unique products, and sum of sales. And based on what I select, the whole chart will update. So how to do this? Let me show you the few steps that you need to follow. We start with the same data, but with nothing from the calculations. Step number one, we need to create an Excel table. So I'm going to click here in the middle, then I'll do insert, table. My table has headers, okay. And then I'm going to call this data. Step number two, we need to insert a pivot table and we need to add this data to a data model. So I'm just going to do insert, then I'm going to do pivot table. Here you have add this data to the data model. So we click on it and we want this in a new worksheet. So now if I go, for example, to Power Pivot, I go to Manage and Diagram, I can see that this table now is in my data model. Let's close this and let's look at this table. Now I have all the options related to Power Pivot. I can put, for example, the country in my rows, and then I can put, for example, the sales amount here, right? So let's remove the sales amount and let's add some measures where we're going to calculate each KPI. So to add a measure, you can go here, right click, add a measure. You have data as a table. We only have one. So we just look at this one. The first measure is average duration. So I'm going to call it average duration, which is the average of my duration in second, which was one of the columns we had in our table. We close the parentheses. I'm just going to make it bigger so you can see it. And then I can check my DAX formula. I have no problem. This is a number, decimal. We're not going to put any decimal place. We'll say OK. And then we have our first measure. We can just put it here. This is the average duration. Let's create the other two. So right click, add measure, sum sales equal sum. We have sales amount. We select it, close the parentheses. I'm just gonna make it bigger. That's the formula. We can check it if we want to. Then we say OK. Here I didn't format it, which is fine. I was just showing you the feature. We're gonna put it here. This is the sum of our sales. The last one is the distinct products. So here we're gonna write equal distinct count, and we have our product that is in another column. We close the parenthesis, I make it bigger, check it, everything is fine. We say OK, and that's my distinct product. So we have it here. The third step is to create a table which will have the names of my headers. So I'm just going to create it here. I'm just going to call it SLICER, and then I'm going to say average duration, distinct products, then sum sales, and I'm going to create an Excel table from this. So insert table. My table has headers. We have to tick it now, and we'll call it SLICER. Enter. Now that we have this, we need to make sure that this is in my data model. So the next step is to go and do Power Pivot, add to data model. If I check my diagram view, now I have two tables. I have the data table and the slicer table. I don't need to do anything else. I have it here, I am fine. What I need to do is create a slicer from this. So we go to all here. Now we have the second table, slicer. We right click here, add as slicer. Now I have my slicer. If I click, it's cool, but nothing is happening here. So how to make something happen here? Let's create a new measure as usual. So we click, we need to select the first table, right click, add measure. We're gonna call this measure selection, and then we're gonna say values, and here we have our slicer. So this is our new table and the column in our new table. We can check it, it's fine. Let's add this measure here, selection. I'm just gonna put it at the bottom. You can see here I have sum of sales, distinct products, average duration. The problem though is that if I press Control and keep Control pressed and I select a second one, I have a problem. You see, I get an error. So to fix this error, I need to make sure that the user selects only one value. So I can just go back to my measure, which is selection, right click, edit measure, and here I have another formula called has one value. So if has one value, we open the parenthesis, then we say slicer. So if my slicer has only one value, comma, it's like a normal if in an Excel file. I need this value, otherwise I need nothing. I don't need to do comma nothing like this. If I just make it bigger so you can see it, I don't need to do this. I can just close the parentheses. It will just keep it blank. So we'll say OK. Now if you see, if I select 2 with Control pressed, I get an empty cell. If I select one of them, it will come here. Now that I have my selection, I need to get the right KPI based on what I have selected. So what do? We add another measure, right click, add measure. For those who are counting, we added 3 measures to calculate each KPI. Then we added one measure for my selection. And now this is the 5th measure to club everything together. So this measure, we're going to call it KPI. And we're going to use all the other 4 measures that we had before. So I'm going to use a switch case, which is instead of using so many ifs, I can use this, it's easier. What is my expression? My expression is basically the selection. So if I write selection, you can see this was one of the measures I had before. If my selection is AVG duration, we have to put it in double quotation because this is the name of what I have selected, comma, if it's the case, I want now the formula AVG duration, which is one of the measures we have created before. Next, same thing. We do, if it's distinct products, comma, we want distinct product, the measure. And lastly, if it's some sales, be careful how you type them. They should be the same as what you have in your slicer table. Then you do some sales. Close the parentheses. I'm just gonna make it bigger so you can see it again. Check the formula, no problem. Let's make it as a number, decimal number, 0 decimal places. We can use the 1000 separator, although it's not gonna make a difference. We say, okay, we have this new measure here. So now I'm just gonna add it. Let's add the KPI at the bottom. You can see that if I select sum of sales, I'm getting these numbers. If I select distinct products, I'm getting these numbers. And if I select average duration, I'm getting these numbers. So now I don't need all these columns. I only need the KPI column. So let's remove them, as simple as that. And now we are left with a table that has these two columns. We can add a chart. So let's select this, insert, we click on this, select the chart, we have a chart. We're gonna create another sheet, which is my reporting sheet. So this is report, this is analysis, and this is data. We select the slicer, press Control, keep Control pressed, select the chart, Control X, then Control V. So you get both of them here. We go to View, remove the grid lines, and now we start fixing our chart. So what I'm gonna do is first get rid of this, the KPI and the country. So to fix it, you can just right click on it and you have hide all field buttons on chart. So that's gone. Next, you click on the grid lines. So I'm gonna click on them, press delete, click on this axis, press delete, click on this axis, do bold, then we're gonna remove the total. So I'm gonna click on it, press delete, same for the legend. I'm gonna add data labels so we can see, and then I'm gonna make this smaller, then change the color. So we select the bars, we go here, let's select this color, and then I need to put the slicer inside. So as you can see, it is behind. We have page layout, bring forward, it becomes in front. If we just fix it here, you can see I have two problems. Number one is the header. Number two, that I cannot see the rest. So you can right click, slicer settings, display header. We remove the headers. And then if I click on slicer here up, I can increase the number of columns. So now I am good with the columns. This can go a bit up. And I need to fix the format of my slicer. So to fix the format of my slicer, I click on it, then I have slicer. I can select any of the format like this one, duplicate, and here I can start fixing it. So the first thing I could do format for the whole slicer, borders, none. So this is the first step. Second step, I can change the color of this. Selected item with data, I can do format. Let's remove any border. Let's fill it in this blue color. Let's go to font, make it white, and then we say okay, okay. Now nothing has changed. Why? Because although you created a new format, it's not selected automatically. So I go back, I select it, and now I have my new format and my new chart. So when I click on distinct product, you can see that this updates automatically. Sum of sales, it updates automatically. Please let me know if you have ever used this in the comment section. And as usual, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel.